Hey everybody, this is Rob Szobski from Szobski Design. I'm coming to you live from the Buffalo Business and Banter podcast. I'll be speaking with local entrepreneurs to find out their mindsets, winning strategies, what makes them tick, and why they love our city. What is going on, everybody? This is Rob Szobski from the Buffalo Business and Banter podcast. I'm here at the Beat Barn with my friend Joe Goretti. Joe is one of the most well-established and talented musicians I know. So let's get into it, man. How you been?
I've been okay. How about yourself? Good to see you.
I'm excellent, man. I'm excellent. This place is beautiful.
Thanks. I built it myself, literally.
Yeah. This was the quarantine project, correct?
It is correct, yes.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. Just to give a little rundown, you lived in New York City for a number of years, graduated from Berklee.
That's true.
Toured the world with Moby.
And some
with
others.
acts like Robyn, and been on late night with David Letterman and Jay Leno. Performed a little bit everywhere. So why don't you give a little bit about your background, what you're up to, and
Okay.
let you take it from there.
Great. Well, I'm from Buffalo originally, as you know. Grew up in Cheektowaga and moved to New York City in around 2002 after I went to school in Boston for a while and did some touring there. And in New York, I just wanted to be a full-time freelance drummer, and I went there to take a shot at the big time. And luckily, when I was there, probably around the 4-year mark, I got lucky and got a gig with Neo. And the R&B guy, and that was back at the time of his first record that was called In My Own Words, and so that was his debut album, and it kind of put me on the map in a lot of ways, in terms of doing high profile stuff. Like you mentioned, I got to do David Letterman with him, and I did like BET House of Style and MTV, bunch of different shows came up when we were rehearsing for him, and then after that there was a little bit of a gap in between that and the higher profile gigs.
How did you even nab that job? How did you get that?
Well, it was an interesting situation. I had been kicking around New York for a while and was sort of on the scene and playing around, with different people, and I was going to like the jam sessions and things like that. And so there were a couple of cats that I had met on that scene, and there were two guys in particular. One was a guy named Ivan Bodley, who's a bass player, and who would give me a lot of gigs with some of the older players like the Temptations and Sam Moore of Sam and Dave and people like that. But there was a new guy that was moving to town named Jim Dower, and he was a piano player coming from Massachusetts. He was moving to New York, and so he came to that same jam session. We hung out, we met, we played that night at the club, and then we exchanged numbers. We had a good chemistry. We thought we should get together and do some playing and recording. I had just purchased some mics and had just gotten into to doing some home recording. And so those guys came over to my apartment in Queens, and we did a little recording session. I know this is a long story, but it's a weird story. So we were doing a recording session, just the three of us, all instrumental music. And the next day, this guy Jim, the new guy in town, he got a call from somebody that he knew named Mike Hamilton. And Mike Hamilton is a saxophonist, bassist, multi-instrumentalist, real talented guy. And he had been asked to put together a band for Neo. He was hired to be Neo's musical director. He was also in Boston. He was teaching at Berklee. And what was asked of him, what Neo's management wanted, was for him to put together a band in New York. But he didn't know any players in New York. So he was calling my friend Jim, who just moved to New York and just played with me the day before. So needless to say, I was fresh on his mind. So he said, yeah, I got a drummer that I could recommend. And, he gave him my name and number and all that. And Mike called me, and then we put together, there was one other guy we got, this friend of mine, Swang is his name. He's another multi-instrumentalist, but he was playing keys on that gig. And so we got Swang, Mike Hamilton came, and myself, and that was the unit, the first unit for Neo. And we went and auditioned for Neo's management, and I thought it was a failure. I thought it was because Neo wasn't there, and there were just these two guys that came up to see us in this weird jam session, and they didn't look impressed by us, and all that. And they were already, Neo had the number one song in the country already, and he didn't even have a band yet, So, anyways, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. We didn't think we got the gig. A couple days later, we did. We got the news. Oh yeah, you guys got the gig. No problem. So there you go. We could relax. We could chill, and then we went on to do a bunch of cool stuff with Neo. We did a lot of his promo stuff. I did Letterman. I did his 2 CD release parties. One in Hollywood and one in New York City, and it was really heavy. That was star-studded. Jay-Z introduced us at the gig. He came up on stage and introduced the band and all that. So we got to hang out and party with those people, and that was my first shot at the big time. I met a lot of people that night, Quentin Tarantino, and
oh wow,
yeah.
What was that guy like?
That was a funny situation, man. I was this was after the party, and we were going to the after party because there was going to be this thing in Hollywood. After we played, we were going to Hollywood and going to do the after party and all that. So we get a ride from the gig to the after party, and I'm in getting my stuff out of the back of the limo, and I can hear my friend Swang talking to somebody, and I can hear him just whatever banter, talking, small talk, and then he goes, "Yeah, right, man, and this is my friend Joe," and I was kind of trying to get something out of the trunk, and I was sort of annoyed, and I just get up and I stick my hand out, and I'm like, "Yeah, how you doing, man?" And I see I'm shaking hands with this dude, and I'm at the end of the hand, at the end of the arm is Quentin Tarantino, and he's like, "How you doing, Joe?" And I kind of vibed him a little bit at first. I was like, "Yeah, what's up, man?" And I was like, "Oh, this motherfucker's Quentin Tarantino." So yeah. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, he's a hero, man. That's great. That's funny.
That was a trip, yeah. So that's how that all went down. That was a good time.
How did you go from touring with Neo and opening to, what did you tour Europe with Moby?
I toured the whole world with Moby. I mean, other than we didn't get to Asia, but I did 2 world tours with Moby. And that was another thing that was supposed to be, it was supposed to be just 5 weeks. I was only supposed to fill in for 5 weeks. And it was another crazy situation that happened where he had a band that he was using, a European band. He had done the whole summer concert circuit in Europe, and they had 5 weeks booked in the U.S., basically North America. And I don't know, something happened last minute that they didn't get. The band's work visas got denied from the U.S. government denied their work visas. So Moby had a tour booked, and the government, they were like, "We're not going to give your band work visas. You got to hire Americans."
Oh, okay.
So Moby had to put together a band, a U.S. band. And that was a situation where I was playing with somebody named Chrissy Poland, who I met at Berklee, who's one of the most talented people I've ever met. She's out on the road with Michael Bolton right now. She's singing. She's a featured singer on that gig. So Chrissy kind of made a lot of the networking connections, and introduced me to a lot of people. So Moby was one of those people, and I was playing in Chrissy's band. Moby knew her. He came to see us one time, and so he had heard me. And so when this thing happened, when he had a tour booked and no band, they reached out to Chrissy and said, who's somebody that you could recommend? Is there, some people that you could recommend? And so she recommended me. And at the time, I was in Buffalo on vacation. I was kind of burned out. I would get burned out a lot of times on New York, and So it was summertime, so I'm hanging out in Buffalo and just living it up and going hanging out and partying at the lake and all this other stuff. And I get this call that I got recommended for Moby, and I'm thinking, it's not going to happen. I'm like, that's like hitting the lotto. What are the odds of this happening? So then I got like an official email from his personal assistant that said I had been recommended and that they wanted to hear me. So I had to think about it. I was like, man, am I really going to cut my vacation short? So of course I did. I got in the car and drove back to New York, and that was another one where I did the first audition. Moby wasn't there, and I figured that I might have, because they were in such a bind time-wise, and this is Moby. He's like, a huge star already.
Well, like I knew you were doing your thing.
Yeah.
I was like, I knew you were talented, obviously. And I was like, oh, Joe's like on a Tonight Show. He's doing this and that. And I was like, good for him. It's amazing. And then I saw your Facebook. I heard you were touring with Moby,
Mm-hmm.
and then you posted something on Facebook, and you had like 100,000 people in front of you, and I was like, holy shit, look at Joe. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, it was whatever venue that was. I saw that. I was like, thank God, you're killing it.
Oh,
Good
thanks.
for you, man.
Well, thank you, number one. To be fair, it was really Moby they were there to see. So
You had a whole crowd in front of you.
I did. Luckily, Moby picked me. I got hired to play with him. He was definitely the star that did all that, and he's the guy they were there to see. I just happened to be able to play the drums well enough for him and be what he was looking for and look kind of close to him. So look kind of close like him. And yeah, there's a picture behind you that's in Greece. That's like 40,000 people up at the top there.
Okay. Oh, 40,000. Yeah.
That was that one. Yeah, but the 100,000 people was in Mexico City, but we definitely did that. That was a huge festival, and that was really cool.
My favorite place.
It's a cool place. I've been there about 3 times. Yeah.
I'm going back this year.
Nice.
Yeah. Can't wait. Can't
Make sure you come back to the States, man.
wait. No problem with that one. Yeah. But yeah, let's talk about, if you got any good Moby stories, let's talk about those.
I mean, the Moby stories Moby was a real bug out because it was like that's a superstar, and Moby, not as many people in the United States know how big Moby is, like internationally, Moby is enormous, and I didn't realize how big he was. Because here, he's technically only a one-hit wonder. He just had that tune with Gwen Stefani, Southside.
Well, he was pretty big. He was beefing with Eminem.
Yes, he was beefing with Eminem. He's definitely big. I'm just saying that he's world famous, and so when we would get to places like when we played in South America, and you were seeing, like you're talking about, the people that were playing, the crowds that were there to see him. We were playing stadiums and stuff like that were just there to see Moby, or when. Just the fact that we had our own private jet, that was for 2 weeks. That was fantastic. Yeah, I've had crazy stories with Moby. Being out with him, I'm very thankful to have had the opportunity. Got to play the Sydney Opera House with him. That was incredible, to be in Australia for all that time. And did some really great stuff in Europe. Played the Palace Theatre with him in London. That was the Moby Unplugged show. That was the first ever Unplugged show.
Okay.
And that was cool. I did a lot of studio stuff with him. Yeah, Moby was great. And just to be able to hang out and work with a guy that is at that level, and pick his brain and ask him like how he came up with the ideas he came up with, and see how he works in the studio, and yeah,
Does that lead into some of what you got into with the intergalactic beat station work?
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. I mean, learning the marriage of electronic and acoustic has been my, I guess, forte. I think, whether it was just because of the gigs that I got, or I got those gigs because I was able to do this, to be able to play acoustic drums, but be able to play as precisely as I could to a machine, And
no easy feat.
It's a specified thing, you know what I mean? It's a specified thing that you got to do. You could practice it. I mean, I do. I'm teaching a course on it, or designing a course all about how to do it. And
This course for sale.
it will be, yeah. Well, it will be. I'm going to be doing workshops in Buffalo at the Beat Barn. I'm going to be doing, some online stuff, but I'm going to be doing an actual course, and it will be on sale for sure. A mini course.
JoeGoretti.com.
JoeGoretti.com. Yep. Thanks.
1 hour, 2 T's.
1 hour, 2 T's. I had to think about it for a minute. Yeah, that's right. So, but yes, the Moby thing, because I got to see what he was doing and what his, for lack of a better word, formula was with his biggest hits. Like how he did things with the sampling and how he built things and the layering and all that stuff. So I definitely got like a sensibility for that Moby vibe, and it definitely led into the Beat Station thing, and it also led to the Robyn gig. So
okay.
yeah. And that was even more electronic. That was purely electronic. And it was a similar situation where, as far as how I got the gig. See, the funny thing about this music business thing, especially the freelance thing, a lot of people think that when they've seen you on TV and that they've seen you play with some famous people, that, like, suddenly you're also financially set, and it's not quite like that. I'm the freelance guy, so I get paid a salary, and I mean, the salary is a nice salary, but it's not a year-round salary. I'm getting paid for when I'm on the road, so it's kind of like the crab fishermen, that go out for 3 months and they make their money and all that, and then they got to fill in the blanks in between. I was living in New York. New York's an expensive place, and I'm also not the best at saving money, So when you would leave for a while and you would come back into town, sometimes people forget about you, or you have to start again. We're getting the local gigs again because people know, oh, he's away, I'm not going to call him. So now you get back into town, and there's always a downtime. Like the winter months are always a struggle for performing musicians, especially in the Northeast. So I had a big gap of time after a Moby tour, and I didn't have anything on the books and was kind of hurting for cash, And it was February, and I get this random call from this friend of mine, John Pennington, who I just spoke to earlier today. John is the front of house guy for Moby. He was the front of house guy for Moby and lots of people, like going back to the London punk scene and new wave scene, and he was in like early days of New Order and all these people. Anyways, he was the front of house guy for Moby, and he was on the road with Robyn. So he was touring with Robyn, same thing, front of house, doing front of house for Robyn. Moby and Robyn have the same management, DEF Entertainment in London. And so same thing happened where Robyn is coming. She has a 3-week tour of the United States booked. She has all Swedish guys in her band. But she has 2 drummers. And one of the drummers couldn't get a work visa. So he couldn't come. So she wanted to have the second drummer. And because she was going to be playing at Radio City Music Hall, and that was a big gig for her. She wanted to do well. So John Pennington recommended me. He said, well, he's already a DEF guy. He's already done this stuff with Moby. He can come in, he can learn the stuff, and he can, do all the parts and all that. And so I was just supposed to do the first 3 shows, go up to Radio City Music Hall, and then we would see where we'd go. And then after Radio City Music Hall, they decided to keep me, and then I did the rest of the tour. And that was great because after I finished the tour, they were really happy with me, and it was a success and all that. And then, I thought I was done. I thought that was the end of it. And about a year later, I get called from Robyn's management to do Leno, the MTV Music Awards, and Saturday Night Live.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So
what
that
were you doing in that year in between the two to keep the boat afloat?
Well, there were several things. Usually it was a lot of local stuff in New York, more kind of club dates, they call them, really. They're just corporate gigs, non-glamorous, weddings and things like that, corporate events, those sorts of things are...
How did you get your foot in, like how, being on the road all the time, what are some tips or techniques you could give the audience about how to keep afloat when you're in between major gigs like that?
It's really about a matter of networking is always really a thing. The more people that know about you, the better. The more different things that you can do, the better. The more versatile, I mean. And you got to let them know you're back in town. That's the other thing. If when you talk about keeping afloat when you're on the road, just maintaining like communications with people. One of the things I was guilty of is when I was out on the road, I didn't answer a lot of emails. I was getting a lot of emails from people or phone calls from New York that were asking me about things, and I would kind of blow them off because, I'm in Greece and hanging out and running around and doing whatever. And, I wasn't keeping the best business because I was having fun and on tour and working with Moby. So what I would say in hindsight is all of those things, you got to keep those connections. Answer the ads, answer the emails, answer the phone calls, the texts, and let them know what's up. Say, I'm out on the road, but this guy might be able to cover you. I'll be back at this time. Let me know if you need me then. That's the best way to do it.
Okay. That's good. All right, everybody, quick commercial break. I'd like to thank our sponsors, which are myself. So big thanks to Szobski Design. For any of you that don't know, that is my marketing agency. We offer marketing consultations, videography, photography, copywriting, and any professional guidance you might need for your business. I also like to give a big shout out to Lit 716. We have a new e-commerce store with Buffalo merchandise, t-shirts, mugs, you name it, we got it. Go check that out at lit716.com. I think we left off talking about travel stories. Tonight Show stories, Jay Leno, celebrity stories.
Sure.
Any kind of interesting stories you want to share, my friend?
Sure, lots. I've had lots of great, crazy stories. Which, I guess the first big thing that I ever did was the Late Night with David Letterman. It was actually called The Late Show with David Letterman at that time. You'll have to edit that. First thing I did was The Late Show with David Letterman, which was a dream come true for me because I used to watch that show when I was a kid. I'd stay up when I was taking drum lessons and first really getting into drumming. I used to stay up late and watch David Letterman. And I used to pay attention to the band, of course, because that's what I was into. So I knew all of the players in the house band. I knew Paul Schaefer and Will Lee and Anton Fig, the drummer, and would wind up actually playing with Will Lee years later, which was obviously another dream come true. So I get the call to do David Letterman, and it was with Neo. And it was kind of a funny call. We were, it was early on in the Neo promotional stuff when he was promoting his first record, and he was had the single So Sick. And so that song was all over the place, and we were just doing a lot of rehearsals, all this other stuff. And I get a phone call that we were going to be doing Letterman, right? I get a call on Thursday, and I hear we're going to be doing David Letterman. We're shooting it on a Monday. So when we're getting ready to go, I remember us waiting out in the hallway, and it was a commercial break, and the house band was playing, and one of the assistants with the network said, okay, when the light goes on, we're going to open up the door. You guys just all run up to get your places and just start playing your instruments. We got to get a check on you, a line check and all this other stuff. And okay, sounds good. So meanwhile, the first group of people that had been on the earlier segment of the show came out, and it was like the guy from House, and they had this little like monkey that was like part of the Letterman used to do these stupid pet trick things.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And they had this little monkey that was on this guy's shoulder, this little tiny monkey, and he comes walking out of the studio, and this monkey's walking, and everybody in the band is lined up, and it's February, and we're freezing cold, you know, because we got it's out in the hallway and all this. We're waiting to go on, and the monkey, the guy with the monkey on his shoulder, is walking down the line. And the monkey is going down and shaking everybody's finger. Like it was like he was shaking your hand, like have a good gig. You know, so that was, if it wasn't surreal enough, now I'm like shaking hands with a monkey. And luckily I didn't say anything or freak him out. He didn't bite my finger off before I had to go on. That would have been tragic. But anyways, after that happened, the light comes on, they open up the door, and they're like, go, go, go. So we run out, and I run up my riser, and we're banging on stuff, and the band is over there playing, and there's everybody, and there's the desk, you know, and there's Letterman sitting at the desk, and I could see all the monitors, and we're back from commercial break, you know, a thing I had seen a million times, and Letterman introduces us, and we're off and running, and we played the gig, and yeah, it was one of the best nights of my life, you know.
That's great, man.
Yeah, it was a highlight.
I remember my mom told me about that. She's like, Joey's gonna be on. Joey's gonna be on.
Yeah.
So for anybody that doesn't know, me and Joe go way back.
Way back.
Our mothers were good friends, so I've known him since I was a child.
You've known me since the age of 0. We've known each other.
I was thinking about it yesterday. I was like, man, I remember going to your house, and I think the first time I was there, you weren't even there. And I was like, oh, those are cool drums, you know, they're pretty sweet. And then the coolest part to me was your father had a race car.
Oh yeah.
And I was blown. I like the drums were cool, but the race car got me going, man. I was like, oh.
Well, you know what's crazy is that where we're sitting right now, before it was this studio, is where the car lift was, where my father and his friends used to build those race cars. Right where I'm sitting right now. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah,
I was like, let me think back to when I met this dude.
We were in diapers, literally, and yeah, he used to come over and play with my little Star Wars action figures. That was back when Star Wars was first happening.
Lots of memories, man. Yeah, bro, we've known each other forever. Like, you just showed me the CD from whatever that was.
20 years ago, yeah. Yep.
I remember playing that for all my friends, especially my buddy Joe. He's been my drummer for, 30 years or whatever.
Nice.
And, to me, you were always super famous even before that. Like, you gave me the CD, and I was like, showing my drummer buddies, like, you got to listen to this guy.
That's awesome.
It's incredible. Like,
man, I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Like, yeah, I mean, drum solos have always been huge to me. I love drums. Like I said, my buddy Joe, we've been playing together off and on in bands for decades.
Nice.
He had his drums in my attic for probably 5-6 years. The kids be banging on them, and he'd come over and he'd be checking them out, and they're like, what are you doing to my drums over here? I'm like, man, leaving them here. I'm letting the kids play on them, bro. Like, what do you expect? Trying to break them into the music industry.
Kids love drums. Drums are the easiest way in, man.
Yeah, I love playing drums.
Bang on things.
But yeah, man, like, you've always been an inspiration to me.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course, man.
Of course. Right on.
But yeah, let's get back to stories, man. I know you got
stories, yeah.
Juicy stuff.
So yeah, well, there was okay. So that was the Letterman situation, and then a few years later, I got to do Jay Leno, and that was with an artist named Robyn, and Jay Leno was a cool experience. That weekend, we went out to L.A. and we were doing we did Jay Leno's show, and then we opened the MTV Music Awards. Yeah, and this was at it was like right around Halloween, and it was on Sunset Boulevard, and there was this huge party, and it was live, and I remember them going to us and everything, and we cut in live, and like there was this big curtain that dropped, and there was just this sea of people, and that's how we opened up the show. And that was cool. I wore a Bills hat, and I was trying to represent. Wore a Bills hat on Leno as well. It's tough to see though. I got the small logo, I'm unfortunately, but I tried, and then about a week after I got back, I got called to do my absolute favorite, which was Saturday Night Live, and that just blew my mind getting that call, because Katy Perry hosted.
Oh, wow.
And she's amazing, and I got to hug her, and she rubbed my bald head, and she smells like vanilla.
Very nice.
Oh, man, I can't. It's very, very nice.
A lot of eyeballs on that one.
It was quite a situation. Yeah, the hug came when we were doing the rehearsal. You do a rehearsal on Thursday, so we were in the the dressing room after we did a little rehearsal, and it was me and Robyn's band, and we were sitting there, and Katy walked in the room, and and just lit up the room. She was just super cool. Walked around and hugged everybody in the room because she knew them, because Robyn opened up for Katy when she was on tour. Not with me. I wasn't with the band at the time because I told you I was substituting for a drummer. So the regular drummer got to do the tour, but I got to meet her and at least got to hug her. And then the head rub came at the after party. Yeah, we did the after party after you shoot the show.
Yeah.
And it's star-studded. The whole cast was there. Alec Baldwin was there. The whole cast of SNL is there. Oh, and Katy was there, and she's walking around and talking to people and chatting and being a real sweetheart. And I was sitting at the table. She comes up to me and shakes my hand, and I was talking to the keyboard player. She shakes both our hands, and she just started rubbing my head. I was cool with that, obviously. Like, go ahead, rub away. So that was my Katy Perry story. She was super sweet, and but that was a while back. She was still married to Russell Brand at that time, but about a week later, they got divorced. So I'm hoping, like, rubbing the crystal ball. You know what I mean?
You didn't do any magic tricks, huh?
I had my cards there and wanted desperately to do it, and I was doing it for some people at the table. Yeah. But it's a little bit of a, you got to be careful with that because you can go from being like super cool to super douchebag if you just bust out a deck of cards.
Yeah. So for anybody that doesn't know, Joe does some magic on the side, and I knew about it, but I never saw you until the Witch's Ball, probably I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
And I knew your thoughts and not exactly how you did things because I never saw you pull any moves, but you blew me away. And if I didn't know that it wasn't real, I would have thought it was real because you blew my mind. You blew my date's mind. She was losing it.
That's awesome.
And I was like, oh my God.
Well, that
you were so good.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, the Witch's Ball. I've done about 3 or 4 of those. Just did another one this last year. It's a little different, but I remember that. And then you blew my mind because the whole time I had done that, you were in a costume, and I had no idea that it was you. And I got done with all that stuff, and you took your mask off, and you just had this big smile on your face, and I was like,
that's the 3D printed costume.
Was that
the mask I had, right? Was it was that the year I had the Mad Max Fury Road mask?
I don't remember exactly.
That doesn't matter.
Yeah, but you definitely blew my mind there, and I remember your date there. Yeah, so I do magic. I got into magic when I was living in New York because, I was paying the bills, playing drums, and I had been playing drums intensely since I was about 14 years old. So, and then had gone to Berklee and did all that stuff and lived in Boston and then moved to New York and was really just like working the blue-collar drummer circuit, So magic was a release. It was like a hobby, I started getting into magic. I saw like a David Blaine special or something like that and thought it was cool. Started figuring out my way of how I would do a trick. They were awful. But I was in New York, which is a great place to be for anything that that you want to get into, unless it's maybe farming or something like that. Even that, they're doing those farming up on the roofs in Brooklyn. But I seeked out magic wherever I could find it, and this is funny how this comes full circle. So I go to like a magic lecture where there was like a famous magician that came and did like a master class for people, And so I met a guy there named Jamie Ian Swiss, who is a dear friend of mine and a mentor. And I met him at this very thing and didn't know about him before because, like I said, I was very new to magic. Turns out he's a magic critic. He's a teacher. He's known as the most feared intellectual in the world of magic. And so I met him, got his card. We didn't really talk at the lecture, but I emailed him and asked if he did lessons, and he said he did. And so we linked up, and I did a lesson with him and performed. And Jamie goes, he goes, all right, well, show me something. So I do my thing, and he goes, well, you can perform. I'll tell you that. You're a performer. He goes, now I just got to teach you how to do magic. So Jamie put me on the track to learning the proper way of sleight of hand and the theory of magic and that whole art form. And how this comes full circle is that Jamie, who is a Brooklyn guy, who was born and raised in Brooklyn and spent most of his life there and in New York City, in D.C., and he now lives in San Diego. But he, most of the stuff he taught, at least in the early stages, a lot of it comes from Buffalo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Buffalo has a extremely rich history of magic that not a lot of people know about. Yeah, there was a place called the Forks Hotel here, and it was around where I grew up in Cheektowaga. And I remember it when I was a kid. It's not there anymore, but and so they had magic there. It was a magic bar, and then on the weekends they would have more magicians there. Maybe you could get your fish fry and all that stuff. It was a really famous, popular place, I guess, throughout mostly like the 60s and the 70s. There was a guy named Eddie Fechter who was the father of a lot of modern card magic. And so my teacher in New York was teaching me a lot of stuff. The first trick he taught me came from Buffalo, from right down the street of where I grew up. So I thought that was pretty interesting, to be like going with a guy, going to study with a teacher who is a full New Yorker and a real student of magic, and one of the first things he does is something from Buffalo.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, so that became a big thing after I was studying with him for a while. I got more and more into it. I had that kind of overly, obsessive sort of personality. So I got way into magic and locked myself in a room and started doing this stuff and went for lessons and came back to Buffalo and met a friend of mine, one of my best friends these days, a guy named Garrett Thomas, who lives in Buffalo, and he's probably one of the greatest living sleight of hand artists in the entire world. And we are working on a 2-man show right now.
Oh, that's what was earlier today. That guy.
Yes,
Okay.
and that's what we were working on earlier today. Yes, so we're writing a 2-man close-up magic show. It's going to be amazing. I mean, it really, because it's because of Garrett, mostly his mind. Even the cool stuff that I'm going to be doing mostly comes from his mind, because he's a designer. He writes for David Blaine and people like that, In fact, he was on Penn and Teller's Fool Us, and he fooled him. And so he's that kind of guy. So we are doing a 2-man show, and that's going to be happening real soon. So 2023 is all about that. We're going to be all over.
Where can people find more info on that?
Right now, probably we're going to start promoting it. It's been sort of under I mean, it's all secret. Obviously, it's magic. But we've been more so writing the show, and we haven't really put the word out too much. But now that the show is pretty much ready or almost ready, we're going to start making announcements, and we're going to pick a date, and then we will have more information.
Need some, I don't know what you plan on doing for marketing or graphics. Like I told you, some of that AI artwork I've been playing with is amazing.
Cool. Yeah.
Let me know, man.
Absolutely.
You know, do some pretty wild shit.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. And you're going to come and shoot the show. You're going to shoot the video for the show,
brother. Yeah, that's another thing I appreciate about you is you're not just a drummer. Like, when I talk to you, I'm super busy. I have my foot in a little bit of everything, and you're a doer. And I appreciate that about you. Like, there's too many people that just don't do things. They're not creating. They're not they're coming home and turning the TV on and unplugging, and that's cool, but that's not what I'm about personally.
Yeah.
Like, for anybody that doesn't know, I do 2D animation, 3D animation. I just put out a little short teaser animation, and I had my buddy Addison Henderson do the voiceover.
Oh, cool.
That shot the movie Givers a Death Here.
Oh, nice.
So shout out to Addison Henderson. If you guys didn't see Givers of Death, almost all Buffalonian cast. Movie was shot entirely here. Amazing sci-fi thriller. It's a beautiful show, especially if you like darker Blade Runner type vibes.
Cool.
Check it out on all streaming platforms, or
Nice.
It's actually he signed a deal with Showtime. It's on Showtime now for like 2 years.
No shit.
So you
Nice.
guys check that out. I worked a little bit on that.
Love it.
But I've already done some work on his film that's yet to be announced to the public. But yeah, like 3D printing. You said you saw me at the Witch's Ball. I'm pretty sure I had my 3D printed mask I designed and printed myself.
Yeah, we talked about making a little action figure for me, remember? When I was going to do the little cyborg guy.
But yeah, like I like to keep busy, and I appreciate that about you.
Yeah.
But the first time I seen you actually do magic, I had a brand new appreciation, because you weren't just doing magic, you were blowing minds with it. Like, you were fantastic. So
thank you.
Congrats, man.
Thank you. I
I'm
appreciate
excited
it.
for the show.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, for sure. And you're going to shoot it. And you'll get to watch it over and over while you edit it, and hopefully, figure out how we do anyhow.
I'll be slow-mo on that thing.
All right. Well, we'll have to have you sign an NDA. But yeah, cool. So yeah, doing all of that, doing the magic thing, doing a lot of recording, and just like you said, trying to keep busy with the stuff and keep up with new technology, which is changing all the time. It's not about when I was first coming up. You just played. I mean, you could do studio recording,
Right.
and that was usually in a studio. Not everybody had studios. Like, I have a recording studio here. I built a studio back when I was in New York, living in Queens, buying the microphones, learning how that stuff worked. But when I was first coming up and learning how to play drums and thinking what it would be like to be a drummer, it was about just playing shows and going in the studio. That's all that there was to do. But now you got to wear a lot of hats, Right. Back then you had to send your demo tape to the record companies and hope that they liked it enough to sign you so that they could release it and put it out on the platforms, right? Well, right now you don't need the record companies anymore. You can do it all yourself, and you haven't for a long time. That's what killed a lot of them. But now you have so much more of everything. Like, you're talking about the AI stuff. Like, you could do your graphics, and I know there's a lot of talk with artists, always have been, about, replacing people. I'll tell you what, when I first started taking drum lessons in the 80s, people were talking about the drum machine. Right? The drum machine was they're talking about, oh man, drum machines. I remember if you mentioned a drum machine to a drummer of a certain era or a certain age, they would like rip your face off. Like, screw drum machines are the worst things ever.
Yeah.
But there were also the drummers in the 80s that embraced that new technology. And it was, going back earlier in the 80s, but you had people like Phil Collins, who used the drum machine in his writing and incorporated it. And Peter Gabriel and Roger Taylor from Queen and a whole bunch of those other people that embraced the new technology that weren't like, this new stuff, get rid of it. We got to stick to our old stuff. Right. So the best thing that you can do is keep up with where technology's going. And so that was part of me actually building this place. What I was thinking was, I'm building a television broadcasting studio. That's because we have the technology now. And not forget about the technology, just the reality of, having like your own television channels. And you build your own content. You make your own TV shows, and
it's powerful stuff.
It's absolutely powerful. And I know thankfully am a pretty talented guy. I can do some things. I have some skills that people like to see, and I have a lot of friends that do too. So I thought, I have the opportunity to have the space or build the space, and so I can broadcast it to the world, and hopefully people dig it and it reaches, the outer Mongolia.
Absolutely, bro. Yeah, and there's definitely going to be job losses, but that's when you have to pivot and learn something new. For me, a lot of this AI stuff, I'm used to doing everything myself. I do the majority of work myself. Sometimes I might outsource something to a friend.
Right.
It's better than me and help me out with this or that. Mm-hmm. But for the majority, it's me. I'm shooting, editing, doing the concepts. The AI. I don't have time to write blog posts. I know I should be writing blog posts for my websites, and now I could type in like talking points and bullet points and have it spit out a half-page article, or like rewrite my grammar for me in
it really is
seconds.
Really is like having an assistant, right? It's like a little virtual assistant.
It can proofread. Like I can type up a real quick few paragraphs or a couple paragraphs, and it can reword it perfect English, the grammar's proper, and I could post it like 3 times faster.
Yeah.
The artwork, that's a different conversation. You can create some amazing artwork. And yeah, it's definitely going to replace some jobs, but as far as a dedicated artist on some art team, like on a film or on like certain projects or advertising, you still need dedicated artists.
Sure.
I see it more affecting small businesses in that regard.
Right.
But that's more for, so many small businesses are struggling right now anyway. Mm-hmm. Use the AI to your advantage and crank out 2-3 times as much content for the same cost to yourself.
Right.
It's an old
and your time, yeah. If you can do all of that, that's the thing. But it is an interesting time to be alive, and it's good to know those the skills, like I said. And for me, with the recording stuff, there was, like I said, there was a time where there were recording studios. There still are, obviously. And a lot of times you can't touch their sound. You really can't. Sometimes for certain things you really can obviously hear the difference. But the real world is there's this whole economy of recording that's happening at a different level. That's more like home studio recording and all of that stuff. So I made that investment a long time ago and learned a whole other skill set that I was never really originally interested in, learning all that software, like what we're talking about, to make your own content. Like I wasn't interested in learning Pro Tools and all that stuff. It was just when I found out that it was worth the time to learn that skill and worth the investment, because I could make my own, all the content that I could make, like what a good investment that was. And not only that, but how many things I didn't even see coming that came to me, like work opportunities. People started to say, hey, could you record this thing for me? I'll pay you this much money. It was this whole other avenue of income that came because this new technology, I mean, it wasn't that new, but it was new enough that I was enough of an anomaly, or unique enough, that I was a drummer that had enough his microphones and could give you stems for Pro Tools.
You did me a huge favor a few years ago. I was playing some shows for Infringement Festival.
Oh yeah, I recorded a bunch of drum loops, right?
Yeah, I had a little loop pedal, and I was just gonna loop some of my guitar riffs and play solos on top of them. And I was like, you know what? I can put 2 tracks on here. Let me see if Joe can record some quick loops for me. And you killed it, man. You put like 20 or 30 little loops on there, but they're amazing.
Oh, great. I love those things.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, man. I've been using them for like 5 years now.
Oh, well, man, we got to get you some new loops. We'll make you a new package, a new loop package.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Put out a 2023 edition.
All right, real quick before we wrap up, what are some of your favorite spots in Buffalo? Tell me why you like Buffalo. Tell me where you like to go, and what you missed being away for so long.
Oh man, I missed so much when I was away from Buffalo, and I missed. Well, the summers here are always a blast, of course. I mean, there's just so much to do, and the people are always having fun, and people are always cool, and friendly, all that stuff. So I love the easygoing vibe of Buffalo when you're coming. When I was living in New York, and I mean, I love New York, but it's a pressure cooker. You got lots of people on top of you, and it's it can be a pretty stressful sometimes. So it's good to get away. Buffalo is always gave me that chill vibe where I could get the best of both worlds, have fun, get whatever food I wanted, and have good drinks and all that stuff, and still not have a million people sitting on top of me. And not have to pay a lot for it.
Yeah. No, I feel that one, man. I've only been I've been in New York City a handful of times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one time you stayed with me the first night, remember?
Yeah, we got to get into that story. Man, we got to have you on again, but we got to have you on again.
Yeah.
I was never like thoroughly impressed. I'm not a big fan of New York City. I might have went to some of the wrong spots, but we'll get into that another time.
It's okay.
Hangout spots.
Yeah, Buffalo. Duende, that whole vibe over there is really cool. I'm a waterfront guy, so I dig anywhere being around the water. I love Riverworks. I think they got some really great things happening there. I was talking about doing a project over there, something cool. Hopefully that'll happen. What else? There's so many great restaurants and all that stuff, What's another place I like?
Best drinks. Where do you go?
Best drinks. I love Matinee. Matinee is in the theater district. They recently they just got their full liquor license, so they're having they did. So they're having these Whiskey Wednesdays, and they're doing all kinds of things, and I'm going to be doing some stuff over there as well, some performances, and those guys are great. You got to go see those guys. I like, I forget the name of the damn place, the House of Charm, I think. Do you know that place on Washington?
No.
Yeah, there's that place. You'll have to fact check me and edit out if I screw up anything. There's another place. It's a little bougie, because it's in a hotel, but Panorama on 7. I love that place. I don't know if you've been there. It's Canal Side. It's in the Marriott there. It's on the 7th floor of the Marriott, but it's like they got the smoked cocktail. You can get into some nice stuff, and I just got some really delicious food. So a friend of mine was in from from New York, and I just wanted to show her, a good view of the city and all that stuff, and some delicious food, and so I took her there. Panorama on 7.
Yeah, man. We'll have to go out.
Definitely.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the last time we went out, we went to Ballyhoo, I think, and that's a cool place too. So
yeah,
Ballyhoo's good.
I was actually just there on New Year's Eve, man.
Were you?
Yeah, I love it there too. I went to Lock House. I was hoping to get a drink from Lock House. They were closed.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're closed.
I don't know. I used to love to go there. I used to play there. They the pandemic really screwed them up. But Ballyhoo, same owner as Lucky Day, and that's another place I like. Lucky Day. And that one is on, I think that's Pearl, and near Huron. And they have live music there Fridays and Saturdays. Really cool vibe. I play there a lot. So cocktails are fantastic. Highly recommend. Yeah.
Let's link up soon. One last question. If you had a superpower, what would it be?
If I had a superpower, what would it be? Boy, that's a good question. Damn, that's a good one. I've thought of several. I like the idea of being invisible. That's one people don't think about ever, but I like.
I definitely like that one.
I like invisible. I'm caught between invisible. I mean, flying, of course, is amazing. I mean, who wouldn't want to fly?
Invisibility is cool because, I don't know about everybody. You think about telepathy and reading minds, but I wouldn't want to be. That seems kind of like a violation, and I wouldn't want to be stuck if I had to listen to people's minds. So if you could turn invisible, you could just sneak in somewhere and kind of see what. Is this person full of shit? Or?
Be a fly on the wall. Right. Nobody could tell. I like invisibility. I mean, flight is good, of course, but that's a little too generic. But invisibility, and here's another one, the ability to, I guess it'd kind of be like the Flash, but in reverse. I would want to be able to, everybody else slows way down, and I move as fast as I can. You know what I'm saying? So I used to think of that stuff when I used to screw around playing goal. I was a goaltender for a little while, and I thought, man, it'd be really good if I could slow this puck down.
Yeah, that's what Bella's doing. She's a goaltender.
Nice.
That's her favorite.
It's a fun thing to play. Yeah, except I broke a pinky doing it once. That's okay. I managed to still figure out how to play the drums.
Drum your ass off. Yeah, you're good.
Thanks.
For anybody listening right now, I am going to have this video up on YouTube with extra footage of the Beat Barn. Joe's going to give us a tour. Why don't you tell us a little about what you're doing here at the Beat Barn and just, let everybody know what's going on here.
Right on. Well, the Beat Barn was, basically it's my father's barn. My father owned some land in Orchard Park. He passed away a couple of years ago. I inherited it and stay here with it. My mother lives up in the front, and I have the barn. And it was sitting there. And while the pandemic was happening, I had a couple rehearsal spaces that I had rented when I came back from New York. A couple of different places around town, and. So the pandemic happened, and, everything, how that went. So I didn't want to keep shelling out and paying money for a rehearsal space. So I had this barn sitting here with all my father's stuff in it, and had talked it over with my stepmother, and she gave me sort of the blessing to turn it into a studio.
It's beautiful here, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks. So what I did is I had to sell a lot of his stuff. I had to do a lot of work. I had never built anything before, but I talked to a couple of different people about how to do it. I designed it myself. Basically what I wanted, it's everything that I always wanted space for. It's it's for me to teach out of. It's for me to play. It's a rehearsal space. It's a recording studio. It's a live streaming studio. I've been did a little concert series last year that I'm going to bring back called Live from the Beat Barn. And that was where I was bringing in different local acts and having them do just a live stream show, and people are here. There's a lot. It's like an in-studio performance in front of a little group. Yeah, it's cool. So it's got a little vibe. I'm going to be doing a whole lot more of that stuff with it. But it's basically like my little television broadcasting studio, and yeah, and it's a multi-purpose thing, and that's what I'm using it for.
It's beautiful here, man.
Thank you.
Definitely. I'm gonna have to record a few more of these podcasts over here, my man.
Anytime you want, anytime at all. Yeah.
Beautiful. I got that on tape. Check that one.
Yes, you do. You got it. You got it. You could check the tape, man.
Yeah, but you told me about it, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go check this thing out. And it's way bigger than I thought. I didn't realize. Like, I saw it when it was just a barn, and now seeing it, what you've done to it, congrats, man. 'Cause I can't build anything either. I gotta learn. You can teach me now. I gotta learn some skills myself.
Well, I'm never ever gonna build anything ever again. So if it wasn't for a pandemic, I sure as hell wouldn't have built it. But thanks for that. And you saw it before, yeah. Like you said, you were here before I built it. So you definitely got the AB.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So let's hear more about the classes that you're going to be teaching. Tell me more.
Yeah, actually, I'm doing a whole drum academy that I'm bringing to Buffalo here. Well, it's here, and I'm right down the street from the stadium, so right in the land of the Buffalo Bills, and I'm in hallowed ground. So I I teach one-on-one lessons, like regular drum lessons, but I also do classes like kind of like Berklee does, or the Drummers Collective. It's a little bit more of it can be a group thing. It's more about a specific topic, like I talk about like a whole thing on just a workshop on drum soloing, or a workshop on playing to electronics, or workshops on wedding bands. Like I have basically put together a career workshop that I've had for over 10 years now, that's been really successful, where it's like vocational training for how to have a career as a professional musician. And I'm going to be teaching that here in Buffalo. I'm going to be starting regular classes. It's a regular thing where I can do a one-on-one situation where it's like for 15 weeks we'll work on all these specific topics that are just related to getting you a career. It's a vocational training for a career as a professional drummer. So that's something I'm going to be doing here. I'm excited about. I got to travel all over and teach that, so I'll be happy to have a home base for that. I'm also going to.
Sounds amazing, man. Congrats.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'm going to be doing a lot of, like I said, it's called the Academy. It's my academy, where I have specific topics that I talk about, and there'll be these workshops that'll be probably at least monthly. I'm hoping to get it like once a week, maybe, where people can come in. We'll work on specific things. We're going to have jam sessions. We're going to have band coaching. That's another thing I was doing, where I'm working with younger bands, like original bands, and I'll work with them. I'll get them on getting their social media stuff together, building that, get them recording, get them some video, things like that. So yeah, I'm excited about all those things. I'm bringing all the stuff that I learned in New York City and in traveling the world and at Berklee College of Music, all of that, and I'm bringing it here to Buffalo, and I'm teaching it to everybody.
That sounds fantastic, Joe.
Thanks a lot.
Wait, man.
Thanks a lot.
It's beautiful here.
I appreciate it. And you're going to be shooting a lot of video here.
Sounds good to me, bro.
All right.
It sounds fantastic. Let me see. Well, tell people where they can find you. I know we said it earlier, but
yes,
all the plugs, what you got? JoeGoretti.com.
It's JoeGoretti.com. That's basically the overall website. There are several web pages. There is, I got to remember because there's two different. So we got, there's drummingcareercourse.com is the specific page for the course for drummers, the vocational drumming course, the career coaching course. And we also have thebeatbarn.com, and that's where you can see all the stuff that's happening at the Beat Barn. You can see the past performances, and you'll be able to see new performances and everything that's happening over there.
YouTube, Instagram.
YouTube. All of the all the links are there on the website. But I have Instagram. I have Joe Goretti, just at Joe Goretti is my regular drumming page, and I also the Beat Barn has a page. I think it's Beat Barn Buffalo, and and then Facebook, same thing. Beat Barn Buffalo is the Facebook page, and I have a Facebook page. It's Joe Goretti, drummer, educator, producer. Maybe not in that order, but you can find it. Awesome.
All right, man. Well, thank you, Joe. I appreciate you coming on. It's always a pleasure seeing you, my friend.
Thank you. Always a pleasure seeing you. You're one of my oldest friends.
Thank you, man. We didn't even get into any of that. Well, we got to have you on again.
Sounds good.
Good seeing you.
Great seeing you.
Everybody check out joegoretti.com, YouTube, Instagram, everywhere. I'll be posting. We'll see you there.
Right on.
All right, everybody. That's all we got for Buffalo Business and Banter. Remember, this is powered by Lit 716, coming to you bi-weekly. I will see you soon. Tune in.